From JBS Studios in Greater New York, this is the JBS News Update with Teisha Bader.
I'm Teisha Bader with the JBS News Update for Wednesday, August the 12th, 2020. We open with Jewish response to presidential hopeful Joe Biden's pick of Senator Kamala Harris as his vice presidential running mate. Executive Director of the Jewish Democratic Council of America, Haley Soifer, who served as the National Security Advisor to Harris, tweeted, "I know firsthand her commitment to creating a better country for all Americans. She strongly aligns with the values of the Jewish community, including her support of Israel and efforts to combat hatred." The American Jewish Committee, while not commenting on Harris as Biden's choice, posted Harris's address to their global forum last year, where she spoke about the importance of the U.S.-Israel relationship and the urgent need to combat anti-Semitism. The Republican Jewish Coalition Executive Director Matt Brooks said Joe Biden has sealed the Democratic Party's move to the extreme left with the choice of Kamala Harris as his running mate, citing Harris's support for the Iran deal and stating that Harris does not stand with Israel and the Jewish community. The Zionist Organization of America congratulated the senator, but said they are very concerned about her troubling positions on key issues affecting America, Israel, and the Jewish people, and called on Harris to promptly and publicly reverse her position on a number of issues, including the Iran deal, and urging Harris to condemn outright remarks made last year by Representative Ilhan Omar about Jews and Israel. Omar, meanwhile, won her primary race last night. The Minnesota Democratic representative has been sharply criticized for comments including, if you recall, last year when she suggested the anti-Semitic trope of Jews having dual loyalty and insinuated that AIPAC pays politicians to support Israel. Omar also supports the BDS, the Boycott, Divestment, and Sanctions campaign that seeks to delegitimize the state of Israel. Last night, she beat out Democratic rival Anton Melton Moe, who has expressed support for Israel. Well, more incendiary devices were launched from Gaza into southern Israel today. According to the Khan public broadcaster, there have been at least a dozen fires caused by the explosive balloons since the morning. Israel later said they were restricting Gaza's fishing zone in response. Last night, the IDF tweeted that in response to a series of explosive balloons launched from Gaza into Israel over the last week, their forces struck Hamas terror targets in Gaza overnight, writing, "We will continue to operate against any attempt to harm Israeli civilians." The spokesperson for Israel's Ministry of Defense released a statement just cleared for publication today of an attempted cyber attack on Israel's leading defense industries. The attack was said to have been conducted by an international cyber group called Lazarus, which is supported by an unnamed foreign country. The spokesperson said the cyber attacks were identified and stopped right away, and no harm or disruption was caused, and that they were investigating this attempted breach. Facebook said yesterday that it was making progress in catching abusive content, including that which targets Jews. The social media giant wrote that in addition to publishing their most recent community standards enforcement report of their policies, they were also updating their policies to more specifically account for certain kinds of implicit hate speech, such as content depicting blackface or stereotypes about Jewish people controlling the world. Last week, Facebook permanently banned French comedian Dudon, a known anti-Semite, from its platform as well as from Instagram. Dudon has been convicted and fined in the past for his inflammatory remarks. Facebook noted content from the comedian that mocked Holocaust victims, saying that some of his posts used dehumanizing terms against Jews. Facebook wrote, "Banning a person permanently from our services is a decision that we always weigh carefully. But individuals and organizations that attack others on the basis of what they are do not have a place on Facebook or Instagram. The Simon Wiesenthal Center called it an important precedent by Facebook not allowing a vicious anti-Semite to hide behind his celebrity status. The New York Post reported that an anti-Semitic note was found taped to the office of New York City Assemblywoman Rebecca Seawright, the contents of which were said to contain grotesque anti-Semitic language. Seawright, who is not herself Jewish but recently sponsored a virtual town hall event on combating anti-Semitism, tweeted in response, "We will never be intimidated by this criminal act." She said, "We have called for a hate crimes investigation." New York Governor Andrew Cuomo wrote that New York has zero tolerance for hate, and we will do everything in our power to hold those responsible accountable. Rabbi Joseph Potasnik, who is executive vice president of the New York Board of Rabbis, told the New York Post, Assemblywoman Seawright held a meeting addressing anti-Semitism, and now we're facing it. He said, "We're not going to be scared. We're not going to be silent." Taking a look now at our programming for tonight on JBS for Wednesday, August the 12th. At 7 o'clock, the way in which diverse sectors of the American community are working to ensure strong bipartisan support for Israel is discussed at AIPAC 2020. At 8 o'clock, a discussion on how young American Jews view Israel with Yair Rosenberg, Batya Unger Sargon, and Barry Weiss. At 9, Mark Golub sits down with President and CEO of Israel Bonds, Israel Maimon, who talks about his experiences in the Golani Brigade, his concerns about Iran, and more. At 10, it's the Jake Ehrenreich Show with Ron Eliran. And coming up next, Thinking Out Loud. And that's the JBS News Update for Wednesday, August the 12th, 2020. I'm Teisha Bader. Stay healthy, stay well.